Hi, everybody. Oh,
I can't hear you. Oh, hold on, maybe it's me.
we're just checking to make sure everything's all right. Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. We have a few questions, and it's interesting. The level of questions are becoming deeper emotionally and generally uh, uh, reaching in to an expression of how people really are inside and are attempting to grow through it. And I have to congratulate everybody who's deeply involved with attempting to do so. Uh, this continues on as we grow and gets um, not so much deeper internally, but deeper in relationship to how that higher state is recognized by each individual. So I wish you all well with that. We have a question which links up with another question. So I'll try and grapple with those two questions the best I can. Keep remembering that you're trying to think these things through and make some sense of them relative to you, not relative to the speaker, someone speaking. And and it's always that way. And uh, in all honesty, even as these questions are related to the person who is speaking, myself, will also be relating to those relative to um, myself. It's really important to know that we grow in terms of cycles of development as opposed to the kind of old Western idea that once you have reached a certain stage, that's the end of your spiritual growth. That is not real. Uh, there's no, let's say, final moment, but there are engaging moments as we proceed and move along, and as we have a deeper, let's say, understanding of what's going on inside yourself. And that way, then, you join a group of people, even though you don't know them, who are sincerely there, growing, and you will never probably get to meet them, uh, or you might consciously, because they don't make a practice of telling you who they are. They're very quiet, but always engaging to the best of their ability in a process related to higher states. In other words, they are in fact involved in the entry of higher states into these planes. Well, let's see what this question is. This is from Jennifer Butler, and she has a couple of questions. Really, there's more than a couple of questions here, but um, is the silent mind concept referring to a moment in the form when energy aligns with its personality and allows something new to come in? Or is it a moment when all personal thinking actually stops? Or is it a moment when we have space and time to choose our experience in the next moment? Probably none of these, probably all of them, but in a different way than we can understand normally based on how we naturally think as a personality. So I've tried to touch on a little bit with words, as I often try to do before these sessions, just to see what I think I'm thinking might be an important thing to keep in mind for anybody in their growing process. So what I first reach into is I say that there is a preparation of the personality that takes place inclusive of life living. That's an aspect of our personality. And we'll discover how important our living of life is in relationship to preparation for a link up within ourselves related to a so-called silent mind or quiet space, or an interaction with a relationship with higher states under certain conditions, under conditions that you're being prepared to be a part of, if indeed that is to occur. And there is also developed in the personality an honesty within itself, about itself, that gets stronger and stronger. And at the same time, judgment gets less and less, but recognition and understanding of where you are in your relationship with looking at you, rather than being a critique, it becomes, that's what I have done. Oh, this is what I do. Is that okay? Well, yes, in some circumstances, fine, in others, not so fine. But that's part of the living that you are doing in relationship to helping you understand you better. You're not looking to be great, bad, in the middle someplace. You're just looking to see, to understand, to be okay with you, to become kind of a friend of yours that is not judgmental and manipulative in relationship to our defenses, whatever they may be, how you protect, how you function. Mostly that is reflexive and automatic, and often people don't even notice they're doing it. So that is not a criticism. That's how it works with us in this particular version of life, level of life. And this is just what happens. All of us on this planet do that because that's how that's the place where the species is. So we're trying to do something with that, trying to see better, understand better, be less resentful of others or ourselves, more respectful of not necessarily us because we have a right to do this and that and the other thing. That's kind of our natural younger self. We do that automatically when we're 4 and 5 years old. We do it even younger than that. And we start practicing things to see whether others will be okay with us, or we can just do whatever we want. We begin to learn, and we don't do it well, because that's the nature of engaging with this species. The species isn't bad. It's just youngish. I am youngish, you are youngish, they are youngish. You want to go through the whole process of setting up a noun, youngish, if you would call it that. Hopefully you begin to smile a bit based on at least an attempt to understand. So you're getting to see you move towards an understanding a little bit better, and trying to be positive and forgiving about what you see the best you can. That eventually helps a lot. From time to time, you begin to see others exactly in the place where they are, that they cannot do anything other than what they do because they've trained to do that. Not knowingly, just reflexively. And it's helped them to survive, whatever it looks like. And becoming a little bit more conscious and understanding that it's okay for you to tell you and talk to you in a kind way. It's like you becoming a parent, not a parent, a parent uh, in relationship to the stuff that we reflexively do, or a more younger person within you. You can be of any age. And it's slow going. Don't be nervous about that. It's okay if it's slow going. Now, you're not trying to reach a perfect point, because if you set that up, you will become more critical of others as well as yourself when you see something that distresses you, or you feel you're not measuring up to something. It's not about that measuring up. It's about understanding that that's a reflex. We have reflexes, and we express that way because it's been practiced. It's not a devaluation to see it or adjust it or want to adjust it and find it very difficult to do so. It's more like, it's difficult to do that, to do it differently. Practice doing it so well, and it conditions us to be, in our view of what functioning is, to be functioning either really well or really bad, depending on the conditioning that you've been a part of. You can protect being judgmental just as much as you can protect anything. Protect being kind. And hardly anyone can understand what you go through that makes you frustrated or angry. And if you are frustrated and angry, of course, what happens is you're beating yourself up at the same time, which is really difficult to understand. But so that's kind of in a preparation idea, because the question that is in all actuality really asking is the silent mind, which is, by the way, some kind of a goal that people think they need to be involved with. It really means a link up with a higher state, not to be right or wrong all the time, to be open to life being different than how you live it. Also, being open enough so that you can go beyond the ideas that you already have, or that are set up for us to have. Naturally and normally, this is how we learn. So, to create a system that allows that to happen, all you're doing is living life and trying to be as honest with yourself as you can. It's not having a dialogue with other people, but you can dialogue with other people. For example, a therapist or someone you trust, and you can engage and hear what you're saying, so you can listen to you talk and engage and speak of things, so that you can be inquisitive about whether the tonal reference or the expression that you're involved with is valuable enough to maintain it, or real enough that you want to maintain it because you assert a kind of understanding within yourself that you rely on reflexively in your daily life. There's no negation in that. It's like having a way to see things and then stiffening up so you can't change that. We all have this to a certain degree because that's the nature of practicing how to live, a version of how to live life, one could say. So, in relationship to that silent mind, it chooses us not because we're good or bad, right or wrong, perfect, and all the rest of it, because there is a moment within us that it may be able to perceive better than we can, that might be appropriate for that union to begin to occur. Often it begins and we have no idea that it's already begun. For example, you might say you're an idea person. You come up with ideas out of nowhere. And you elevate your personality as a very able being. Yeah, well, sure, it might be true. But where are those ideas coming from? Well, you're not able yet to see the difference between how you struggle to come up with an idea or may not struggle, or an idea is presented in your mind. And of course, you have the idea that anything in this box up here, in here, that comes into it is yours because you have ownership of it. Oh, you have it. Realize you only have it for a short period of time, 100 years, less maybe. Who knows? But the issue is you don't know what's going on in there. So therefore, you can only go by what you know. And what you do know is your own personality setup, the patterns. You don't even know them most of the time. The way you think you act may be different than how you do act. It's not about being good or bad, right or wrong. It's about, oh my goodness, I didn't know. That's what happened under these circumstances. Getting to know that can be uncomfortable because you're looking at a you that doesn't fit the mold that you've already constructed, the image form that you have constructed, but you're watching how you function for a purpose. And that purpose is to understand you better, to know you better. So anything that isn't you will be clearer to you because, in fact, it's not only the mind that goes quiet, but it's a perception within you that goes quiet so you can watch what is in you. Now, that doesn't really make sense when you categorize what a personality is relative to what we're taught mostly. But if you look at an engagement with yourself and remember, maybe ask the question, have I ever said something I wish I hadn't said? Maybe. Have you ever had an idea that you might not even have necessarily agreed with, but you spoke it out and it made sense to other people? These are two different things. Have you ever had a reaction in your body and you expressed some kind of response to whatever it may be? Doesn't matter what it was. And then realized, my God, that response is not how I want to be seen or noticed. Or you might have many responses that fit kind of a way of seeing you that you're proud of because you're You're grumbly on Tuesdays and Thursdays between the hours of 6 in the morning and 10:30. Or you might say, well, 5 days you're like that because you take a rest on the weekend. There's all kinds of image making structures out there, patterns, and you get to be proud of them and you reflexively respond to them and you engage with them and you feel good about it. Eh, normal. We have those. We don't have to have them to be a human being and have a personality. We get to replay them often enough and we get to find that they're a statement about how we are. In fact, finding out about that and maybe adjusting it maybe a little bit, only between 6 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the morning, or 8:15, or after I have my coffee, I'm okay, or whatever statement you want to use, and it's fine. Except it's kind of a fantasy world. It's not necessarily as real as it you have proposed it to yourself to be real. Or it may have done something 25, 30, 40 years ago. It might have gotten you a tremendous amount of attention. And even you are bored with it. You're lucky if that's true. Because then all you have to do is say, if I'm bored with it, why am I using it? Well, I find myself doing it automatically, one could say. Well, then you're fortunate. You've just seen something. You don't even necessarily agree with it that much. So do something else. With a little practice, you'll like it too. It's the way we tend to be. Except when you're starting to look at things from a different perspective, you'll say, you know what? I'm okay without that. I'll miss it, but I'm okay with that. You need a sense of humor when you're engaging with images that you see outside of the favorite image that you've constructed as a whole, and you want people to see you in that particular manner because it gives you a sense of value and it's pertinent. Well, you were pertinent before you had those things. You just added those features so that you can underline what you feel is valuable. Yeah. Well, the trick in this is if you can soften those down a little bit, you'll find that you are cultivating watching what goes on inside your body and outside of your body. The next thing you'll have to calm down is your reaction. And the next question relates to some of this from Lee Martin relating to life stresses and how the nervous system is so automatically engaged with those life stresses. And in fact, to learn how to gentle the system down when it's not using some of the favorite things that you might believe you need to do, or when you're attempting to see something as it's going on, you tend to see the stresses because they're increasing, because as you're attempting to shift or change something, it doesn't want to change things that have been reflexively normalizing for us. And when I'm saying, I said before, these are deeper questions. These are questions that are related to reality. They're not theoretical questions. And that means growth is occurring. Let me just finish off something of Jennifer's here. Yeah, I said it chooses us, and the moment that is appropriate, at the moment that's appropriate for such a union. When that union occurs, let me read this and then make a comment after. Yet the personality as it is has to have time to get used to that union because it's a movement into the unknown. And the unknown bothers us. Whether we believe it does or not just doesn't matter. It just does because we don't, it's as if we have a club in our hand and we're moving into the cave of another aspect of living, and we're looking for lurking shadows that might attack. And obviously, they kind of do because our reactions are the shadows. And you can understand how everyone and anyone in any kind of change going on within them would have a reaction. This is natural for us, not to be looked down on, but the softening of them, their energy, these reactions, and all of us have them. So the softening can be related to energy as well as verbalization. You can say, well, I don't think I really need to be as stressed out in this condition under these circumstances as much as I need to be. And you can try and talk yourself down. Also, though, on top of that is you living life during that period of time. So it's always been known that inner growth always has an additional stress. Whereas it's been touted by many that if you were truly spiritual, you wouldn't have that stress. This is just nonsense. It just isn't real. Any unknown engagement is a part of us learning how to soften our reflex reaction to the unknown. And it's because we don't really know what to do next. Well, you can use tools. You can turn your hands on, which is another question that Jennifer has. The hands are carbon copies of the whole body. The buttocks area right at the bottom of the hand. The root gonad structure related here and the bottom of the hand. The forefinger relative to the throat center and relationships here. The brow up here. This one, I can't do that right now, especially with my right hand. This one here, literally the brow center, the heart center, and this wondrous one in the middle. Guess why it's in the middle? It's in our middle too, our solar plexus. And these systems, literally when the hands come on stronger, the systems get stronger in the body as well as the hands. Granted, every other center also has aspects of every other center within it. So, the crown center has aspects of all centers in it. The brow the same way, the throat, the face the same way, the heart the same way, the solar plexus the same way, the gonad center the same way, the root center the same way. And if more energy comes in a lower center, it's because you're broadening out that lower center so some of the upper centers can engage differently than they're already engaging with the personality. Because your personality is nothing but energy coming into those centers and expressing themselves. I don't like that. A shot of energy goes through. Let me preserve myself. Let me defend myself. A shot of energy moves through. Upward as well. Backward. Forward. Towards the sides. Some of these are hugely powerful. Learning how to soften them down as you interact and react helps there to be a responsive, honest system within you so that you can address things under conditions that relate to having added energy operate into you so that you can slowly move in a direction that will enable a deeper flow and a softer flow within you. Energy comes in relative to how you function. If you can remember that, if you function with intensity because it's of value to you to do so, then energy coming in will come in with the intensity, relative intensity. It tries not to blast you, relative to your personality's use of energy, because you have one, because you used energy as it was expressing itself through you, where you were actually capable of handling it as a child, as a juvenile, as an adult, early young adult, older adult, etc. Keep it going. And you're learning how to soften down that intensity when you are trained to increase it in our species. It's called power. If you learn how to soften it down, then automatically you begin to soften it down. Well, we're not trained that way. So you're learning how to do that energetically, opening the hands, asking for help. You allow that more universal level to be beyond you in a situational relationship of helping. In other words, you want help because you don't know how to help you. I know someone will say, yeah, but I know how to help me. I've been helping me and I've been doing this and I've been doing that and I've been very this and very that. Yeah, that's fine. And you will continue to be that way. But it will be known by that higher state that you can't handle anymore energy than you are currently handling without hurting yourself. There is a gentling that naturally begins to occur as you get a little older. For some, not for everybody. Many of us would like to be younger. And that's the reason, one of the reasons why we want to stick around a little longer, you see. And that's one of the reasonings for being in a certain way, a gentler way, so that we can be around longer. Our system is quite physical, as you know. Our core system is also emotional, as you may have found out, depending on your use of that emotion. You may have found out that it does link up to the brain, and you use that intensity to cultivate a way of thinking, an intellectual construct that makes some sense. You try to make sense of the world, you, perhaps yourself, perhaps others, but you have been trained to use it critically, both yourself and others. Learning how to do that differently means learning how to see that others can only do what they do. And they don't know how to do it any other way. Or they have a reason for doing it that way because it shapes their image making and keeps it solidified in a particular manner that they have no idea about or have a slight idea about. And that if too much energy came in in a particular way, they would be screaming in an attempt to hold themselves in the same position that they were yesterday. This is very difficult to initiate higher states down into lower states, meaning lower states have to be able to handle it. And life is partly how the gentling, the softening of the personalities dictates begin. It does not have to be harsh. But I'm not sure if this is true of everyone, but certainly true of many of us. When we're able to recognize the vulnerability of us and slowly realize that we really are, that means making friends with your vulnerability as opposed to being angry because you're vulnerable or dismissive of it or judgmental of it, giving yourself a hard time or others under those conditions. But acknowledging that we are not perfect. This is hard for a lot of people reflexively. They would not consciously think that they're not perfect. As a matter of fact, they would defend the idea that they were not perfect. They just act as if, and they defend themselves as if they believe that everything they express is the key way of looking at things. This is very difficult for us. That's why it's so important with ideas to consider them and wonder and be curious about them. Try and see how they fit, if they can fit, in terms of your understanding. Sometimes it's very difficult. But this silent mind or quiet mind is an aspect of inner development. It's not an aspect of topical relationship with the personality's ingenuity and capability and kind of being superior because they can do this and other people can't. And this is the nature of a metaphysical background. It is the nature of, if you are superior at something, then you're better than other people. Well, there's a different view. If you are very able at something, help in that area. Humanity needs all the help it can get. You can do this if you're really linked up with a higher state without elevating your personality. It is a possibility because we transmit, as you remember those pictures that Neville so graciously set up for us. If you remember those pictures of both a man and a woman, and they were transmitting all the time, we do that all the time. You share information or intensity of a kind with the whole of the group of the species as you engage with others. That's not a criticism. It's how we do it. And therefore, new children are affected by that coming in. But they're also affected by any new growth that can occur in any timeline, be it in any direction, I'm afraid. Yet, it's how our species have cultivated a movement of a kind, certainly in the investigation of nature, and the attempt to understand human nature as well. at least to some degree. And we are learning all the time. It's not about finding a perfect answer, it's about understanding deeper, realization, recognition that there is something beyond where we are. And it's not a race, it's an interaction. And it's not a competition, it's a relationship. So if you are able to move just a little bit in that direction, you affect others who are attempting to move in that direction. Because there has been movement in you, it will stimulate a kind of reflexive movement in the species. This is difficult for most people to understand and even think possible. But remember those two people interacting with each other all the time energetically, with or without their knowledge. They're doing it without their knowledge as well. You get two people, two so-called spiritual people, and they're trying to improve each other consciously. They haven't got a clue what they're doing, but they think they do. So letting that open, silent mind occurs is the meaning is there is a quietness that occurs in the head related to the emotional intellect, often called the mental. But it still has its affiliation and its protection of the intellect that's personalized. But it no longer responds in a dialogue manner as much as it did before. Early stages, it still goes on. And every now and then it quietens down. Then it comes back. Then it comes back. This is process. This is how process works. And that is wondrous. I remember a conversation between two people. One guy says to the other, I have opened my mind. It's not perfect yet. It's in a every now and then. I had this kind of ongoing dialogue going on about what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing in relationship to what would be the right thing to do if I was a spiritual person. The guy was being honest. The other person said, I'm already at the state where I know for sure that I have reached that higher state. One day you'll be able to do that too. And I realized how difficult it is to listen to someone who's being honest versus an image that has to be there to be better than somebody else, because that is our training. Was it actually true? No. I'll tell you why. It wasn't true because he personalized it. The other guy was being honest about the fact that it was intermittent, but still going on, and he was learning. That was honest. Now, people listening to this talk go out and they talk to other people and they say, well, my growth is intermittent, but it means that they have copied. It's not as real as they believe. The belief system quietens down. It becomes a seeing system. What is going on here? Okay. And you quiet down. You don't have to speak it. It's not necessary to, because you're being taught in a different manner, in a manner that relates to a deeper understanding. Not only a rote understanding related to a reflex that you have no idea exists. Or you do have an idea that exists. But you can watch these stages, not only in others, but in yourself, and say, okay, wow, yeah, that's still there, but still, there are times when it's a lot quieter. And other times when it's not. And I wish it was like that all the time. And there now you go, you're heading off in that direction. You're still okay. Absolutely. Because it takes lifetimes, I've been told. And it may not, and it cannot be anticipated by the personality. It can only be experienced in the personal vehicle beingness that is trained in a certain manner. When the mind opens, it affects the emotions, it affects the body. But the tendency is to blend these together and still be able to perceive as if you are conscious of something. So you're not an empty shell, but you don't speak about those things that are reflexive, and you don't lean on those things that are reflexive as much as you did before, but you still do. But you catch it and know that it's true that you are leaning on those things. And it's okay. You're cultivating, noticing, and acknowledging yourself as a human being, not only a version of an image that you believe has to exist if you're spiritual in accordance with a structure that you have looked at and believe must be true. Those kinds of structures are, hear this one, important to a certain stage. And it's okay if you believe one way versus another until you realize that that isn't what you have to do. But you can begin to notice that many structures have much in them for the purpose of being helpful. So your understanding becomes more in the idea of you being helpful in your growing to reach a stage where you can be helpful to others just by being there. You don't have to say a word. And that is the action of energy operating through a silent being, a silent mind, or a personality that is prepared not to interfere with the expression of energy that is necessary in another as it operates through you. You notice it, you don't interfere with it. You just engage as if you're walking around doing what you normally do. Unless you're teaching, and then it becomes difficult to know where to draw the line of relating as a personality. If you're honest with yourself, you'll see you more and more, because teaching helps you not only to see you better, but to see others better in a more compassionate and deeply understanding manner that relates to recognizing that slow development is always seen as fast development and hard to deal with from time to time. There's wonderful question from both Lee Martin, and I'll get into Lee Martin's probably next Thursday more. So let me just, I think I covered everything. Let me just end with observing, learning, understanding more respectfully, becoming your friend in the growing process works both ways to help you grow and not to do so. You can use that energy to hold yourself stiffer and stiffer and stiffer. That's why it comes in a manner that relates to the intensity that you use for the purpose of engaging with your personality the way you already believe you need to. So you can soften down, so you can see it better, so you can be okay. Doesn't mean your personality is bad. Doesn't mean you're wrong in doing things the way you did. It just means slowing it down, softening it down allows energy to come in softer in a manner that can be helpful. And it's a byway towards linking up with other lifetimes, if you can believe in such a thing, where you have been able to use different frequencies for different lifetimes. They can begin to slowly log in to this form that you have now, so that that higher state can slowly begin little by little to help you use other energies other than the ones that automatically operate through you for the benefit of others. So you begin to understand slowly that you are a composite being instead of a singular form with this and this and this and this being what you believe must be real. I think both ways to help. Fear is a powerful emotion in this unknowing, this process of a movement into the unknown. For any of us, fear is a powerful emotion, but it's an aspect of energy flow operating for the purpose of preservation of us. But love is even stronger. So love mode will feed that fear. In other words, will help it to be softer or greater because we use it in that manner. None of us are exempt from these things. We are personalities. Even a person who says now, emphasis on the says, that they are now spiritual, they're using their personality for a purpose that relates to an image that they believe valuable in its expression, the way they express it, whatever that means. And some of the people I've been so fortunate to meet who are truly able to handle tremendous levels of flow of that universal energy, they don't speak with their mouth. We are held in that position because if you meet somebody that doesn't say anything and you can't perceive what they are transmitting, they are literally okay with that. But you would come up with a statement personalized that says something like, that's interesting. They're not speaking. They must be kind of weird. Or not somebody I really want to be around. They don't talk enough. They don't speak enough. They don't do this. They don't do that. That is a protection of how you do things. These other folks are quite able to engage with you if you can have it happen without freaking out in a manner that relates to a different level of expression. I think it's time for us to begin to meditate again. Thank you, Jen, and I will talk to your question, Lee. There are some similar parts in it, but nonetheless, both of you, thank you very much for those questions. They're much deeper than let's say, just engaging with a reflex. Thank you very much. Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding. Good night, everyone.